Marcus is riding the northern state, holding 65 in the left lane. The silver sedan, 2 car lanes ahead, keeps drifting slightly right, then snapping back. Speed bleeds off a couple of miles per hour without cause, then recovers. He's picked up on a distracted driver. Marcus moves right, opens up 4 car lanes of buffer, positions himself where the driver's mirror should catch him. 20 seconds later, that sedan wanders into the shoulder before jerking back. At the next ramp, the driver finally looks up and puts the phone down. Marcus never came close to being in danger because he saw it coming. That's not luck, that's a skill, and every motorcycle rider can learn it. I'll show you the behavioral signals that show up before a distracted driver becomes dangerous, the positioning moves that take you out of the equation before the problem starts, and what happens legally to that driver's phone records when a crash does occur. Most safety advice about distracted drivers sounds like a public service announcement. Don't drive distracted. Put down the phone. Those messages are aimed at drivers and they're not working. The National Safety Council puts distracted driving as a factor in roughly 3,000 deaths per year, and those numbers aren't going down. So forget about changing drivers. That's not your job on the road. Your job is to read them. Distracted drivers send signals before they become dangerous. The key is learning to pick those signals up 3 to 5 seconds before they become a problem, because that's your reaction window on a motorcycle. You don't have steel around you. You don't have airbags. When something goes wrong, you are the crumple zone. That's why reading the road at this level matters more for you than it does for anyone in a car. Here's what to look for. Lane drift with correction. A focused driver holds their lane. A distracted driver drifts. You'll see it as a slow lean towards the line, sometimes a wheel crossing and snapping back. One correction might be wind or a road crown. 2 corrections in the same stretch with no road reason, that's a pattern. Get out of their orbit before you need to. Inconsistent speed without cause. The car ahead of you slows for a few miles per hour, then creeps back up. No brake lights, no traffic visible ahead. Their foot eased off the gas because their attention was somewhere else. This is one of the easiest tells at highway speed. Watch the gap between you and any car in front. If it keeps changing without traffic reason, assume that driver isn't fully there. The slow reaction at lights. Traffic moves, the car in front of you stays still. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3, then it lurches forward. That lag is the phone going down, the eyes coming up, the brain re-engaging. It also tells you what that driver was doing for the 30 seconds before the light changed, not just 3 seconds they hesitated. Head position. A scanning driver's head moves constantly, checking mirrors, taking in the lane picture. A distracted driver's head is still and slightly down. At night, you can sometimes catch the phone glow, a faint blue reflection off the windshield or off their face. During the day, it's the stillness that reads wrong. A head that doesn't move on a driver rolling at 65 miles per hour is a signal worth acting on. Micro accelerations and bleeds. Speed management on the highway should be smooth. A distracted driver produces a choppy speed signature, small, unintentional throttle inputs as their attention drifts and returns. If the driver ahead of you keeps making small speed changes that don't match traffic flow, that inconsistency has a cause. Trust what you're seeing. Now, here's the part that really matters for you specifically. Car drivers have crumple zones, seatbelts, and airbags. When a distracted driver clips them, they swap information on the shoulder. When a distracted driver hits a motorcycle rider, the math is completely different. There's no margin in this for you. You cannot absorb a mistake the way a car driver can. That's not a reason to be scared out of riding. It's a reason to operate at a level of awareness that car drivers have no reason to develop. I've been riding in New York for over 20 years. I treat distracted driving the same way I treat wet pavement. I can't change it. I can ride around it. Here's what that looks like in practice. Create buffer space before you need it. Don't wait for the swerve. When you see the behavioral tells, add distance immediately. Drop back, move laterally, change your position in the lane. The buffer you create before the problem is worth 10 times the reaction you make after one starts. Never ride in a blind spot. Distracted drivers don't check their mirrors. If you're riding in the space their mirrors should show and they're on a phone, you are functionally invisible to them. Ride ahead of them or well behind them. If you're passing, make it quick and get clear. Position yourself where their mirrors would find you. When you have to ride near a potentially distracted driver, be in a position where their mirrors would show you if they actually looked. You can't control whether they look, but you can control whether you'd be visible if they did. That's the version of this you can manage. Have the exit plan before you need it. Before you ride alongside any car, know where you're going if they move. Shoulder available, lane space to your left. Run the scenario before it happens, not during. Riders who have the time to react are almost always the ones who already knew what they'd do. I want to hear this from you. What's the signal that's gotten you out of a situation? The thing you noticed that told you a driver wasn't paying attention before anything even happened? Drop it in the comments. I read every one of them, and what you've seen out there is genuinely useful to other riders on these roads. I've worked as an EMT before I became an attorney. I've worked crashes from both sides. The difference I saw consistently between the riders who walked away and the riders who didn't wasn't always about gear or speed. It was often about time. The riders who came out of bad situations almost always had a fraction of a second more warning. They saw something, processed it, and then moved. Other riders had no warning at all. That fraction of a second is what you're training yourself to create every time you ride. When a distracted driver does cause a crash, their phone becomes evidence. Cell tower data, app activity timestamps, text logs, what your attorney can subpoena, and what disappears if too much time passes. I've handled cases where the phone data was the difference between a disputed claim and a clear finding of liability. The driver's version changes after they talk to their insurance company. The phone records don't change. They show what was happening at the exact time of impact down to the second. Documentation at the scene matters. If a driver admits they were on the phone, note it. If anyone witnessed it, get their information before the scene clears. The details you preserve in the first hour are the ones that hold up later. The details you try to reconstruct 2 weeks later rarely do. Marcus on the Northern State never needed any of that. He read the silver sedan 3 seconds out, moved right, opened 4 car lanes, and watched the driver wander into the shoulder and recover. He was never in the equation. That's the outcome the positioning habits produce. The legal section of this video exists because not every rider sees it in time, but the goal is to make sure you do. If you want to go deeper on what to do in the minutes right after a crash, I've got a video on exactly that. I'll link it above. Knowing what to document, what to say, and what not to say can matter as much as anything else. And if you've been hit by a distracted driver and you've got questions about your situation, the contact information is in the description. I do answer. What's the tell that saved you? Leave it below.